is almost over, but not before we discuss everything that happened at Sony's conference. Now, I know this is a little bit late, but Sony's conference didn't start till 2 AM UK time, and to be honest with you, I just didn't have the stamina to stay up for the conference and then, of course, do the video. So forgive me if that is in this video. But without further ado, let's kick off with God of War, which we did see make a return right at the start of the conference. So, it seems like, judging from the little bit that we got in this trailer, that the Norse mythology rumours were right, as we see Kratos and a young kid sort of wandering around some sort of snowing environments, and we have Kratos with an axe, as we saw before. He's looking a little bit different since we last saw him, but it is undoubtedly Kratos with the same tattoos and everything. And we see him fight some sort of troll, and again with an axe. And what's interesting is that there was a sort of a kill animation thing, but there was no QTEs. Now I don't know if that's just for the purposes of the demonstration or whatever, or if this was just like a cutscene rather than one of the playable cutscenes that we know from God of War or what. We just don't know. All we know is no QTEs in this segment. It's looking really cool. Kratos, but with an axe. In Norse mythology, possibly. I'm a little bit disappointed it's not a new character, to be honest. I actually kind of would have preferred that, because the fact that Kratos is there raises all sorts of questions, like, why is he there? Why is he there in Norse mythology when he's not from Norse mythology? B, what happened to the world after he balked it in God of War 3? But I guess we'll find all that out. No release date or anything. All we know is it's called God of War. It's not God of War 4. And there was a sort of sub-line called A New Beginning. I don't think that's part of the game title, but it definitely seems to be, hey, it's a fresh start for Kratos. Perhaps he's somehow found his way into a new world. Hopefully he doesn't balk this one as well. That would be good. Next up was a reveal of something new by the name of Days Gone. And it seems like it's yet another post-apocalyptic game. It seems we can't get enough of those apparently, because they're still coming out even this day. We didn't really learn too much from the trailer reveal of this particular game. We have a sort of guy on a motorcycle. He seems to be part of some sort of motorcycle gang, judging from the fact that he's got tags and stuff on his jacket. It seemed to involve a lot of zombies in the gameplay demo that we got later on in the conference, but other than that, we didn't really learn a huge amount, to be honest. What we did finally learn, moving on, is the release dates for The Last Guardian. And it seems my dreams have come true, as it indeed coming out this year. Apologies for the sniffle there, but we have The Last Guardian coming out a day before my birthday, October 25. So it seems that Team Ico have been listening to my hopes and dreams and have granted my wish of Last Guardian coming out this year. Hopefully it doesn't get delayed, because that would make me cry. But I'm just happy we're getting it this year. We didn't get much new gameplay, sadly, from The Last Guardian. We did get some really lengthy gameplay from Horizon Zero Dawn, which is a little bit frustrating, given that we all know that game isn't coming out till next year. But the Horizon Zero Dawn continues to look really, really cool, with interesting setting, interesting main character, really nice looking graphics. I'm definitely looking forward to Horizon Zero Dawn and hoping to play it fairly soon in 2017. But again, it's not out till next year, so while I'm looking forward to it, it's not like at the forefront of my concerns, I guess you could say, but it is looking really cool. Nice to get some gameplay from this particular game. Again, continuing the theme of E3 of having lots of gameplay on show, which is really nice. Next up, we had a new trailer for Detroit Become Human, which is of course David Cage's next dishing of emotions. Very pretty graphics, as you'd expect for a David Cage game, and we have some sort of police procedural kind of setting going on, where you're playing as an android called Connor, and he seems to be really pretty deep in the uncanny valley, to be quite frank, and he's going around, doing police things. So perhaps in the game you're going to be doing investigative things, solving crimes perhaps. We don't know. There's not much to be gained from the trailer other than the setting, and that it's going to have lots of emotions, because it's David Cage, lots of emotions on display. However, moving on swiftly away from emotions and into the lands of Resident Evil 7, which looks like a pretty big departure for the series, I've got to say. Now, this game isn't out till January 24th, but it will be playable entirely on PlayStation VR, which is pretty awesome. That fills me with joy. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, PlayStation VR? Wait, how's that going to work? Third person? PlayStation VR? And the answer is, well, it was in first person. And at first I thought it was just the trailer, perhaps for dramatic purposes, kind of thing. But no, looking at the gameplay demo, it is indeed in first person, which is really strange for Resident Evil 7. Of course, we've always had a sort of third-person perspective, usually over the shoulder. Obviously, we had their sort of old-style ones, but for the more modern ones, it's usually over the shoulder. But it seems we've got first-person, and I have to say, Resident Evil's gone all Silent Hill on us in this particular one, at least judging from the trailer. It's not quite so surreal as Silent Hill, judging from what we saw, but it has that kind of vibe where everything's very, very decrepit, abandoned for a long time, cobwebs everywhere, wallpaper peeling. Very sort of like atmosphere of dread hanging over everything in the trailer. It definitely looks like a return to survival horror, which is pretty awesome, and it's just gone a bit Silent Hill-y on us with the first person perspective, and then the sort of different sort of feel to things, I suppose. I'm not going to complain, it looks interesting, I'm definitely going to play it because it's more Resident Evil, and it looks like it's not another awful thing that was Resident Evil 6, so hey, I'm down. On the topic of PlayStation VR, however, we finally got a release date for that particular headset. It will be coming out on October the 13th. They will be coming out with 50 games available for the end of the year, including both new and established franchises. There's something called Farpoint, which is a PlayStation VR Star Wars Battlefront mission, and we also got shown Batman Arkham VR, which is also coming this October. Now, what's interesting is that Final Fantasy 15 is also apparently going to have some kind of PlayStation VR experience. It's first person and you play as Prompto. It had a September release date, but obviously that's probably just for Final Fantasy 15 because obviously the headset itself doesn't come out till October, so we could probably forget that release date, to be quite honest. I'm just really curious, is this just like a demo kind of thing, or sort of a separate thing from the main campaign, or what? We just don't know, but Final Fantasy has some kind of PlayStation VR thing. Now, next up, we had a trailer for the Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, and the campaign of this is going to be playable 30 days early on PlayStation, assuming, of course, you pre-order, because naturally, pre-orders. Seems to be the theme of E3 every year, you know, despite the fact they're doing a little bit better this year, we still can't escape it entirely, because of course we can't. Next up, Sony has made a lot of us pretty damn happy as they've worked their wizardry and have managed to rescue the IP for Crash Bandicoot from Activision. I know, it seems our dreams might just come true, but before we get new games, what we are going to get is remasters of Crash Bandicoot 1, 2 and Warped for the PlayStation 4. Now, this is pretty awesome because those games are great, and them being remastered, also great. But this means, of course, that now that they have the IP back, they can potentially work on new projects for Crash Bandicoot for coming years. So while we're not getting a new game just yet, it does give us hope that Crash Bandicoot will live again and we'll see a return of the old school Crash Bandicoot games. But the first, remasters. Really looking forward to seeing what Crash Bandicoot Warped is going to be like remastered. That was my favourite Crash Bandicoot of all time. The other two are good, don't get me wrong, but Warped is my fave, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I'm pretty happy that this is happening, and I didn't actually think it would, to be honest, but hey, here we are. Now, next up was a really nice surprise as Hideo Kojima made an appearance to announce that, of course, he is back and showed us a cinematic trailer for his upcoming game, which is now called Death Stranding. Now, what's really cool is that it actually features Norman Reedus. And it seems he and Kojima Productions have continued to work together despite the dissolution of Silent Hills. The cinematic trailer revealed basically nothing other than the fact that it has Norman Reedus and the game is called Death Stranding. What's interesting is that the main character is standing on a beach where there's all sorts of dead fish just washed up on the beach and sort of looking out to the sea. So perhaps we're going to have some sort of, sea theme going on, but we just don't know. It could just be a weird, surreal trailer that has nothing to do with the game. We just don't know. But we do know the title of Hideo Kojima's new game, and it looks intriguing. I'm curious to seeing what we have doing. Now, we do indeed have a new SpiderMan game for PlayStation 4, as was rumoured for some time. Sadly, however, it's not from Sucker Punch. It is indeed from Insomniac. Now, that's not to say Insomniac are a bad developer, that's not true at all, but I have to say I'm a lot less interested in an Insomniac one than a Sucker Punch one. I really wanted to see Sucker Punch take their sort of brand of open world silliness to Spider-Man. That could have been really, really interesting. So I'm still curious as to what Insomniac have on offer for us, but a lot less interested now that Sucker Punch aren't working on it, but hey, we are indeed getting a Spider-Man game for the PlayStation 4. Sadly, no gameplay on offer here either, but it looks interesting from the little teaser that we got. Obviously third-person gameplay, little tiny snippets that we got, definitely third-person. Perhaps open world would make sense for a Spider-Man game, but we learned basically nothing. So overall, some pretty nice reveals from Sony, I have to say. A lot of what we expected with God of War and a few other bits, but some nice surprises as well. You know, Crash Bandicoot's coming back, Last Guardian's actually releasing this year, which, to be honest, I hoped for, but I didn't actually dare, like, expect, if that makes any sense at all. So, that's pretty awesome. Resident Evil 7 seems to have gone all Silent Hill on us, which I'm down. I'm cool with that. I mean, it's probably not completely Silent Hill, I'm being a bit facetious here, obviously, but it's definitely taken a bit of a hard turn from when we last saw it, and I'm okay with it, because Resident Evil 6 was just... no. PlayStation VR, looking forward to that. Glad we got a release date for that. We've got some cool demonstrations. I'm really curious what Final Fantasy 15 VR thing is, but you know, Batman Arkham VR, awesome. Again, Crash Bandicoot coming back. Again, like, not any new games this time around, but hey, remakes. And the fact that they've got the IP back means maybe, you know, they can toddle on down, give it to Naughty Dog, and we'll be kids. But I doubt Naughty Dog would want to do that after working on Uncharted and Last of Us. But hey, maybe they want a break from dark, gritty realism. We'll have to see. But it still gives us hope for the future. And again, Death Stranding, learned basically nothing, but it looks interesting. And SpiderMan, PlayStation 4, but not by Sucker Punch. Boo! Still, nice reveals. No mention of Final Fantasy 7. I'm not really surprised. I did think it would be a bit soon for it to be sort of coming out this year, especially with Final Fantasy 15 releasing. I think Square knows that they don't want to do that. And no Kingdom Hearts, which, you know, again, not surprised by, just disappointed by, to be honest. God of War looks interesting, looking forward to some more of that. Hopefully Kratos isn't a complete monster like God of War 3. He obviously never was a good guy, but he lost any humanity he had in number 3. God of War 1 and 2, he had humanity, and that was what made him an interesting character, because he was awful, he was an awful human being, but he still had something interesting about him. He wasn't just like, I am pure evil because reasons, which is very much what God of War 3 was, which is the main reason it disappointed me, is it just took Kratos in a really boring direction, and a direction that makes no logical sense as well. So hopefully we can kind of like dial back from that. Given that he's like walking around with a little kid and he's not smashing his face in is a good sign. So hey, maybe he's a changed man. We just don't know. So highlights for me, probably Resident Evil 7 looks really cool. Crash Bandicoot remakes, awesome. Last Guardian release date. And Death Stranding looks cool. Arkham VR, yeah, some cool highlights of a PlayStation conference. Some nice reveals. It wasn't going to top last year where we had like Final Fantasy 7 remake and Shenmue and all Last Guardian and Stellar thing. You know, obviously they weren't going to top that. I don't think anyone expected them to, but it was still a strong conference overall. So all we have left now is Nintendo. Obviously, we all know, allegedly, that all they're going to have is Zelda. But I was still going to watch it anyway because, hey, a real look at Zelda is awesome. Maybe that'll reveal some other stuff, but we'll see. Okay, that's me done for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.